Item Number, SCP-453. Object Class, Euclid. Special Containment Procedures, SCP-453 is to be staffed by no fewer than 4 bartenders, 6 bouncers, 4 cleaners, 1 doctor, 4 EMTs, and 2 observation personnel, all trained Foundation staff, at all times. Additionally, 10 or more Foundation security staff are to be kept on standby in the adjacent outbuilding 453-01, connected to SCP-453 by basement access. All staff are required to familiarize themselves with Document 453-1, complete list of known scripts, and memorize all scripts that have been flagged by the current on-site supervisor, Dr. Marillion. Failure to memorize flagged scripts is grounds for immediate discharge from SCP-453 duty, and will result in a formal demerit on the offending personnel's record. SCP-453 is to be locked and guarded between the hours of 0400 and 2000, local time. From 2000 to 0400 it is to be unlocked and open. Anyone entering the club during operating hours will have a radio tracking tag clipped to his or her clothing, and will remain monitored closely by closed-circuit cameras at all times. During the day, SCP-453 is to be inspected and measured in all dimensions by staff. Any movement of fixed objects in the building are to be recorded and reported to Head Researcher Dr. Marillion. Fire prevention and violence suppression protocols are to be kept in accordance with Standing Order 405-991 Section T. Should movement of fixed internal structures violate this protocol, renovation crews are to be recruited to the site immediately for restructuring. Description: SCP-453 is a nightclub located in Redacted, Italy, currently owned and operated entirely by Foundation personnel. Every night, an apparently random assortment of civilians from Redacted and adjoining municipalities arrive at the club. Although the night invariably begins identically to any other club, over the course of the night the civilians present fall into roles in one of Redacted currently documented sequences of events, termed scripts by Foundation operatives working on SCP-453. Over the course of the evening, generally according to script, civilians will depart the club and return home, maintaining only partial memories of the night. All surviving civilians depart before 0400 every night. SCP-453 has existed in its current location for as long as Foundation records exist. Archaeological evidence suggests a wealthy Roman senator, known for extravagant nightly parties, had a villa in the location as early as Redacted BCE. The Foundation has had possession of the site since Redacted. On several occasions the building has been torn down or destroyed. Outdoor parties continue to persist nightly at the site. When the site itself is rendered inaccessible, civilian partygoers will gather as near as possible to the site and begin an impromptu street party. This party rapidly devolves into a riot. See Document 453-1, complete list of known scripts, attached. The club in its current configuration was designed and built entirely according to Foundation specifications. All core construction materials are SCP containment grade, to limit damage due to the more violent scripts. Dr. Marillion has observed that the building has shown some self-mutational ability. Of particular note has been the gradual shift of the location of the secure locker containing suppression weaponry for staff use. It has moved closer and closer to the men's washroom. At this time it remains in the secure staff section. Other sections of the building have slowly moved and changed in similar ways. A complete log of known scripts is attached as Document 453-1. The selection of a script appears to be semi-random, although various stimuli will encourage particular scripts to occur. For example, Script 117, the Silver Harlequins, has only been observed when more than 15 club attendees are over the age of 60. Please note that while script logs detail pertinent events, all events in the club aside from staff actions become scripted at around 2,100 hours, varies depending on script. Participants begin speaking in Latin while engaged in script, although music, dance styles, alcohol, etc. remain modern. Complete logs of all recorded actions, lines, and requests for each script are available on request from Dr. Marillion. In its current configuration, SCP-453 has shown preference for 3 scripts in particular. These 3 account for roughly 80% of the scripts seen, and represent a good cross-section of the general types of scripts SCP-453 is capable of. These scripts follow, listed in order of frequency. Script 43, The Cheating Wife. Low priority, low fatality, staff medical intervention required at 2,307 hours for 43 male C, and recommended for 43 males A and B. Medical treatment of 43 wife at 2,319 hours is also recommended, but is conditional on consent from 43 wife, as she will have left the script at this point. Pertinent events: at 2,149 hours, a female, 43 wife, between the ages of 20 and 25, will withdraw to the men's washroom, followed within 2 minutes by 3 males between the ages of 20 and 40, 43 male A, B, and C. Between 21:52 and 22:50 hours, data expunged. At 2,255 hours, a male civilian, 43 husband, will enter SCP-453, order a bottle of red wine, and proceed immediately to the washroom. 43 husband will beat 43 male A and B to unconsciousness using the bottle. 43 male C will receive minor brain trauma. Prompt medical attention will allow 43 male C to recover within 1 week. 43 husband drags 43 wife out of the washroom and proceeds to, data expunged, screaming epithets about infidelity and marriage in Latin. Other participants of the club pay no attention. 43 husband drags 43 wife out of SCP-453 at 2,319 hours, at which point they leave the script and 43 wife can be retrieved for medical intervention. Aftermath: despite the trauma of the events, 43 wife shows no memory of them the following day. When injuries are pointed out, she reacts with shock. 43 husband remembers the events vaguely, but will not believe they were anything but a nightmare. Reacts violently to interrogating agent if pressed in this manner. The 343 males remember getting in a bar fight, but not the cause. Notes: none of the participants in this script have any relationship or prior knowledge of each other. If introduced after the events of the script, participants 43 wife and the 43 males will have an irrational hatred of 43 husband. This applies to anyone who has previously participated in the script as one of these roles, even on different dates. 43 husband finds himself extremely attracted to 43 wife. Further postscript introduction of 43 husband and 43 wife has been denied after, data expunged. It is of some interest to note that despite capably handling the 43 males in combat, the script appears to preferentially select a 43 husband who is diminutive in stature and in poor physical condition, while the 43 males are typically large and physically fit. Experiment Log 453-S43, Deviation: the male washroom is closed and locked after 43 wife enters. Result: for new individuals, 43 locksmiths arrive at the washroom almost immediately after it is closed, forcibly opening the doors in order to use the facilities. Events proceed as usual, with a 12-minute delay. These individuals appear to be able to circumvent any lock we have thus far applied to the door, including SCP redacted. Deviation: 43 husband is denied access to a full bottle of alcohol, given a glass instead. Result: 43 husband takes a bar stool into the washroom. Participants 43 wife and 43 male A and C are killed instead of injured. Participant 43 male B suffers irrecoverable spinal injuries. Footnote 1. Use of SCP-427 authorized to enable recovery of this civilian, redacted, 2010. Dr. Urson. Deviation: 4 Foundation personnel enter the men's washroom and attempt to subdue 43 husband using suppressive weaponry. Result: see video log 453-43039. Foundation personnel subdued by 43 husband, who reacts immediately to the arrival of the Foundation personnel before any attack is made, disarming them and destroying their weaponry after suppressing them with it. Foundation personnel ignored from this point onward. Script proceeds as usual with a 3-minute delay. Note: direct intervention in scripted events should be handled much more carefully in light of data expunged. We were very lucky this time. Dr. Marilliani. Script 21, The Senator's Visit. High priority, Medium fatality. Staff are to immediately prepare the triage in room 453-12 on commencement of this script at 2,213 hours. Medical intervention will commence at 2,259 hours. Most medical intervention will be aided by autopsy information from previous script occurrences, attached in document 453-S21 Med, pertinent events. At 2,213 hours, a civilian, 21 Senator, will arrive in SCP-453, accompanied by a retinue of 13 servants, 21 Servant A through M. The servants will arrive carrying improvised weaponry. On arrival of 21 Senator, conversation in the club ceases for 4 minutes. 3 civilians already present, 21 Assassin A and B, 21 Activist, withdraw to other corners of the club and confer with uninvolved civilians over the importance of 21 Senator's arrival. At 2,217 hours, 21 Senator's retinue clears him a table near the center of the room, and he begins demanding extravagant food and drinks. The types of food and drink vary depending on currently available menu items. If insufficiently expensive menu items are available, 21 Senator will demand complicated dishes made from ingredients presently available in SCP-453. He has shown the ability to predict accurately exactly what ingredients and cooking methods are possible with the facilities on hand in SCP-453. Despite Foundation efforts to the contrary, 21 Senator's orders are always completed at 2227, 2239, and 2,250 hours. This is one of only a few occasions where the script will directly alter the actions of Foundation staff on site. At 2,240 hours, 21 Activist will approach 21 Senator and begin heckling him regarding the treatment of slaves in Redacted, a Roman city. 3 minutes into her speech, 21 Servant A, B, and C will forcibly remove 21 Activist and assault her with their improvised weaponry. She will be left for dead at the side of the main club room at 2,259 hours, and should be taken to triage immediately. At 2,321 hours, 21 Assassin A will approach 21 Senator, produce a bladed weapon, and attack him. 21 Servants C, D, E, and F will respond immediately, disabling and killing 21 Assassin A. No intervention has, as yet, been able to prevent this. At 2,345 hours, 21 Assassin B will incite a bar fight and a gaggle of civilians along the easternmost wall of the club. For minutes after starting the commotion, 21 Assassin B will stab 21 Servants A, B, D, F, J, K, and M, running rapidly through the brawl towards 21 Senator. 21 Servants B, F, and K can be immediately removed as they will be on the edge of the escalating brawl, and should be taken to triage immediately. 21 Servant A can be removed at 2,356 hours, as the crowd moves away, but should be treated for trampling as well. 21 Servants D, J, and M will not be retrievable until 0010 hours, and must receive immediate top priority attention or die. See document 453-S21 Med. At 2,350 hours, 21 Assassin B reaches 21 Senator and engages in combat with 21 Servant C. Both receive critical injuries as 21 Senator attempts to escape. 21 Assassin B finally disables 21 Servant C and charges at 21 Senator at 2,353 hours, stabbing him in the neck. Any attempts to recover 21 Senator or 21 Servant C have met with further violence and casualties from 21 Assassin B, and should not be attempted. From 2355 to 0115 hours, the bar brawl continues to escalate. A full list of injuries and possible civilian recovery times is attached in document 453-S21 Med, although no further fatal injuries will be experienced. At 0119 hours, 19 civilians, 21 Vigilas A through S, will enter SCP-453, all armed with improvised weapons and shields, and subdue the crowd using tactics believed to be consistent with Roman Vigilas. The 21 Vigilas will then clear out the club. Injured civilians can be recovered as they exit the club, and will not exhibit any further scripted behavior. SCP-453 may be locked at 0200 hours following an instance of Script 21. All staff should immediately report to triage to aid medical staff. Aftermath: no participants in Script 21 show any memory of the actual events. All remember being involved in a violent bar fight, and remember that some people were badly hurt. Other memories are fuzzy, consistent with serious intoxication. Notes: this is one of the historically most common events, having occurred for as long as the Foundation has known about this site. It has diminished somewhat in frequency. As the most violent of the common scripted events, it is required that all SCP-453 staff be completely familiar with the exact sequence of all events in this script, both for their own safety and to diminish civilian casualties as much as possible. Experiment Log 453-S21, Special. To date, any attempted intervention in Script 21 has resulted in either neutral results, such as being unable to change the time required to prepare 21 senators' meals, or SCP-453 staff becoming part of the scripted events, in which case the staff invariably suffers serious injuries. Further testing has been denied pending Level 4 authorization. Previous logs are available on request. Script 82, The Plurality Cult. Top priority: high fatality. If no known script has manifested by 0000 hours, staff are advised to prepare for the possibility of a Script 82 event. A weapons check is advised, followed by donning of riot gear and gas masks treated to resist Type 14 neurotoxin. Civilians are to be told the riot gear is part of a theme night, and issued non-functional decorative goggles if they wish to participate. Pertinent events: Script 82 will not manifest until 0200 hours. Until this time, SCP-453 will be fully inactive, and events entirely mundane. At 0201 hours, one attendee, 82 Prime, will move to the center of the room and proclaim, in Latin, "The time of plurality has come." Between 50 to 90% of the other civilians in the club, hereafter referred to as 82 cultists, will respond, "We embrace the many." Note: any Foundation staff observed to reply in kind are to be terminated immediately and without hesitation by the nearest staff member. At this stage, Intervention 453-82 Pariah is to commence. The following sequence of events is a summary of Pariah. SCP-453 staff must read and memorize the attached full protocol. At the selection of 82 Prime, staff observers will identify civilians who did not respond to 82 Prime's announcement using software provided for this purpose. These civilians will be flagged on the HUDs of all Foundation personnel riot helmets. Priority 1 is to secure these civilians and remove them to Holding Area 453-11. Holding Area 453-11 is to be secured by no fewer than 2 armed personnel. Any 82 cultists approaching within 5 meters of Holding Area 453-11 should be met with lethal force. Should the number of uninvolved civilians be too great to contain in Holding Area 453-11 before 0215 hours, either due to space or staff restrictions, all Foundation personnel are ordered to cease attempting to contain civilians, and instead begin subduing any and all 82 cultists. Non-lethal force is preferred. Cultists must be rendered unconscious or completely restrained, but lethal force is authorized, and encouraged if Pariah is proceeding slower than anticipated. 82 Prime must not be harmed or interrupted in any way. Between 0201 and 0225 hours, 82 Prime will lead the 82 cultists in a Latin chant. They will not respond to attacks by Foundation staff, and unaffected civilians will act as though nothing is going on. At 0225 hours, if either, 1, all civilians have been contained, and or 2, all 82 cultists have been subdued, the script will end with 82 Prime laughing hysterically, toasting the club, and returning to normal. The rest of the evening will proceed as though SCP-453 were a mundane club, and all participants will dissipate before 0400 hours. If, by 0225 hours, cessation of chanting, there remain any civilians and 82 cultists, complete elimination of one or the other faction is sufficient prevention. In SCP-453, Pariah is to be immediately aborted and all staff are to engage all non-Foundation personnel inside SCP-453, civilians and 82 cultists, with the exception of 82 Prime, with maximum prejudice. Observation personnel are to trigger release of type 14 neurotoxic gas into SCP-453. 82 Prime is, as previously, not to be attacked. Note that 82 Prime has proven resistant to type 14 neurotoxic gas. No other gas types are authorized. If 82 Prime is harmed in any way, or if any civilians or 82 cultists remain active by 0230 hours, observation personnel are required to activate site self-destruct mechanisms immediately. If, by 0300 hours, contact with SCP-453 has been lost without registration of a successful self-destruct, observational staff are required to notify all Foundation listening posts by transmission frequency, redacted. Advise potential redacted K-class scenario. Aftermath. No surviving participants will remember Script 82, remembering only a pleasant night at the club, even if Operation Pariah failed, with the exception of 82 Prime. Those who participated as 82 Prime will have recurring nightmares featuring data expunged, typically leading to loss of sleep, decreased productivity, and eventual insanity. For this reason, staff should capture former 82 Prime participants as they leave the club and remit them to site redacted for therapy and monitoring. Notes: despite the severity of this script, Pariah is typically extremely effective. An abort has not been necessary since Redacted 19 redacted, and a full failure has not been observed since December 16, 1857. However, reports indicate that Script 82 has become increasingly common since data expunged.
Item Number: SCP-201. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures: no personnel are to come within 40 meters of SCP-201 at any time. Any and all work done with SCP-201 is to be performed via remotely controlled drone. Any personnel entering the containment area must be accompanied by 2 members of security. All personnel in containment area must wear a restraint harness, with safety rope attached to the wall. Rope will allow access to within 3 meters of the minimum safe area. Exceeding this distance will result in physical removal from containment area, and formal discipline. Those affected by SCP-201 are to have time and date of exposure, disappearance, and return, along with any and all personal information, recorded in logs. Subjects who reappear are to be recovered as soon as possible by agents and debriefed immediately. Description: SCP-201 appears to be a very old piece of medical equipment, superficially resembling an 4-stand, but with many other glass and metal items attached to it. SCP-201 stands 1.8 meters, 6 feet, tall, and has a mass of 36.5 kilograms, 80 pounds. The metal portions are made of steel and brass, and various parts are connected with rubber tubing. The 2-4 bags are porcelain and are open at the top. SCP-201 was recovered in hospital, in a long-unused storage area. No record of SCP-201 appears anywhere in hospital records. Entering within 30 meters of SCP-201 can result in the subject being displaced into an alternate reality. This effect is apparently random, with some subjects remaining totally unaffected after exposure to SCP-201. Those affected will cease to exist in our reality between 1 and 48 hours after initial exposure. Durations of displacement vary between a few hours and upwards of 8 years. Time spent in this alternate reality can vary greatly from actual time elapsed in our reality. This alternate world appears identical to our own, with these exceptions. It is apparently in a state of constant twilight, with no sun or moon visible at any time. Large banks of very dense gray fog travel very low to the ground. These fog banks are unaffected by wind, and can make exposed skin feel very sticky and dirty. There is no plant or animal life anywhere. All places of human habitation, including major cities, appear as if all life suddenly vanished in the same instant. Most, if not all, electrical systems appear to be broken or without power. The air will randomly take on a gray-brown tint, accompanied by strong wind. Subjects displaced to this alternate world report initial surprise and curiosity, which are shortly replaced with very strong feelings of loneliness and fear. The severity varies widely with individual subjects and with time of displacement. Upon the end of displacement, subject will reintegrate from this alternate world to our own, which can cause a great deal of shock, especially in urban settings. Most subjects who remain displaced for more than 3 months suffer lasting psychological damage consistent with being sequestered within solitary confinement.
Submit Level 4/201 login credentials. Credentials accepted.
In addition, reports of intermittent, fragmentary broadcasts have been returned by subjects attempting to repair power to media devices such as televisions and radios. It is unclear if these are real or the product of the degraded mental states of those remaining long enough to complete said projects, but reports consistently resemble automated messages prepared by the Foundation in contingency for XK-class scenarios. Testing will commence if viable samples can be recovered. Item Number: SCP-278. Object Class: Safe. Special Containment Procedures: without any input into its controls, SCP-278 will construct its web in any dimly lit, large open area, preferring high 90-degree tri-corner roosts spanning 300 cubic meters. Those personnel at its controls report that the ease of piloting SCP-278 appears inconsistently simple in comparison to the complexity of the mechanisms involved and the lack of any electronic guidance. Description: SCP-278 is a large mechanical robot made of steel, iron, and banyan wood, strongly resembling Idiopsis barcudensis, a type of Indian arachnid. Clear signs that SCP-278 has been upgraded or modernized recently have been found. Core mechanisms and frame of the body are dated back some 150 years to the period. Many new engineering components have been added by unknown parties. Hydraulics and servos seem to have replaced what were systems of pulleys and gears driven by steam engines. The average length of SCP-278 is about 16.5 meters, 54 feet, from the opisthosoma, abdomen, to the tip of the furthest leg, and the highest part of the main body sits about 8.2 meters, 27 feet, off the ground. A control panel of levers and pedals are positioned at what would be the mid-cephalothorax on the back of SCP-278. Again, numerous modifications have been made to the control panel, actually simplifying the control scheme into a more conventional, flight stick and throttle configuration. Though SCP-278 lacks any electronics, CPU, or wiring beyond the presence of a few dozen car batteries, the complex motions of multi-pedal locomotion are fully automated through a complex network of looping tethers, compound pulleys, belts, and hydraulic pistons. The oldest functioning component of SCP-278 is a type of processing transmission, relying on multiple rotating perforated drums and coils providing different instructional input for commands of motion. A human operator working the controls essentially shifts gears, to readjust the configuration and position of the control drums and coils which guide the rhythm of motion to the legs essential for moving SCP-278. Though the finer details that control SCP-278 are not fully understood, researchers are perplexed by the autonomy SCP-278 displays when no human input is presented. It is not known how SCP-278 is capable of moving and performing complex tasks on its own without an operator, the most impressive of which is the construction of an elaborate web made from nylon tether, similar to bungee cord, with high tensile strength. The cords are constantly stored and reused since the discovery of SCP-278, the typical web having a diameter of about 41 meters. Addendum: SCP-278 escaped confinement on the 2nd of September 2008, when SCP breached its own containment, disabling the facility located at. During the night, SCP-278 had traveled kilometers to Liverpool, England, where it was found, poised vertically upside down on the side of a building known as Concourse House. SCP personnel posing as a theatrical group introduced SCP-278 to citizens as La Princesse, the showcase of a theatrical production. With human operators at the controls, SCP-278 was paraded around the city under the guise of a show. Item Number: SCP-296. Object Class: Primary Object Classification: Safe. Secondary Object Classification: Safe, Euclid, and Keter. Special Containment Procedures: Armed Containment Site-03 has been in the process of reconstruction since the discovery of SCP-296 in the geometric center of the destruction, caused by enactment of Emergency Protocol XT. Refer to Document 1E027, Addendum 1, Viewable in. Reinstallation of tactical thermonuclear devices in a primary perimeter between the established 100-kilometer quarantine perimeter and the exposed region of SCP-296 has also been initiated. As SCP-296 has already exhibited resilience in the face of annihilation-grade weaponry, it is suggested that the TDN devices be calibrated to deliver a high-yield, low-radius explosion so as to minimize damage to ACS-03's existing structures. All personnel, agents and researchers assigned to SCP-296 must have no criminal background, prior to and during SCP service. Any incidents approximating criminal behavior, as well as suspicions of possible criminal behavior, are to be considered disqualification for assignment to duties directly relating to SCP-296. Description: Upon examination of the blast crater occupying ACS-03's previous location, a stone channel was discovered in the crater's geometric center. The stone is of an unknown composition, and was utterly unaffected by the detonations of the failsafe devices utilized by Emergency Protocol XT. It is unknown whether the structure designated SCP-296 existed prior to the annihilation of ACS-03's previous installations. However, the contents of SCP-296's interior suggest it was somehow created in the explosion. From the exterior, SCP-296's entry channel appears to simply be a set of carved, fitted stones arranged around a vertical, rectangular shaft. They extend into the ground for several feet before light simply ceases to penetrate and it enters into darkness. Initial attempts to investigate followed standard procedure using Class D personnel. Each maintained contact for a few moments before failing to report back. After several personnel were lost in this manner, robotic surveillance was initiated, and revealed the presence of an amphitheater-type structure, around which were seated 56 figures of similar appearance. Each was roughly humanoid and made of a substance similar at first glance to ice. Thermal scans indicated a variety of temperatures, varying from figure to figure, and most did not conform to temperatures low enough to support solidification of water. Surveillance also discovered the remains of the Class D personnel. The deceased exhibited the following characteristics. Personnel A. A was found beside a figure, with cylindrical wounds extending through her skull, one each surrounding the previous location of each eye socket, one passing laterally through the skull and excising the ears and all associated organs, one excising the nose, one excising the mouth. Subject's skin had also been removed whole and rested beside the corpse, along with the cylinders of bone, flesh and viscera that have been removed from her skull, which rested atop the skin. Wounds confirmed to match those inflicted by Euclid Class SCP. Confirmed to have been present at ACS-03 during initial installation's annihilation. Personnel B. B was found collapsed on the ground beside a second figure with what initially appeared to be total destruction of his skeletal system. Autopsy later revealed the complete liquefaction of all interior bodily systems. Damage confirmed to match those inflicted by Euclid Class SCP. Also confirmed to have been present at ACS-03 during enactment of Emergency Protocol XT. Personnel C to G. Personnel C through G were found beside a third figure. All 5 personnel occupied roughly the same space at different angles. Still technically collectively alive, the resulting recombinant creature was quite obviously both insane and irreparably crippled and was later terminated on site. Analysis of records pertaining to Keter Class SCP indicated conformity to exposure to its exponential recombination effect. SCP was also confirmed to have been contained within ACS-03 at time of annihilation. Surveillance was forcibly terminated before further information could be gathered. The final image transferred by the robot was that of the figure beside the still active form of personnel C to G shattering, and the form of SCP, appearing amidst its debris. 76 Class D personnel, 23 agents and 5 researchers were lost before sufficient information regarding SCP could be dispatched to allow for the forced initiation of its hibernation cycle. SCP has since been relocated to Armed Biocontainment Area 14 and subjected to containment and following with its original procedures. No further attempts to investigate SCP-296 have been made as of this time. Proposals for controlled systematic testing of each figure has been suggested by Dr. but have been denied on the grounds that the risk of releasing SCP, although its presence within the amphitheater has yet to be confirmed, is too great. Addendum 296-1. Dr. has proposed that the SCP objects lost during the destruction of ACS-03's original facility were somehow repositioned within SCP-296's interior. The reason for this is unknown, as is the cause for their apparent containment within the ice figures. The theory is supported by the remarkable similarity between the number of SCP objects thought lost to the detonation and the number of figures within SCP-296. However, the inexplicable 56th figure poses the significant possibility of a threat. Further investigation is postponed. Addendum 296-2. Dr. was discovered emerging from within the interior of SCP-296 on 2000. She was immediately apprehended and subjected to questioning, upon which several facts were made clear. Dr. had, against policy, falsified entry documents and passed the security checkpoints necessary to investigate SCP-296's interior. Upon her entry, she reported she had an instant of feeling psychically violated, followed by immediate unconsciousness. When she awoke, she claims one of the figures contacted her telepathically. She could not identify which one at that time, as there was no corresponding visible stimuli, but she insists it is the 56th figure, the additional figure not corresponding to an SCP object previously stored within ACS-03. The figure communicated that it was known, in our language, as Judgment. The Class D personnel initially admitted to its interior were found, as Dr. put it, guilty, and were summarily executed by way of utilization of the SCP objects contained within the figures. It equated the figures to jail cells, and implied the release of SCP was analogous to early release for good behavior. She related that Judgment will allow innocent personnel entry to the interior of SCP-296, but that it would be responsible for ultimate assignment of guilt, or lack of guilt, of the personnel itself. Addendum 296-3. Communications between Dr.'s research team and Judgment have revealed new information regarding the figures within SCP-296. They have compiled a list of the SCP objects contained within SCP-296's figures, identical to ACS-03's original contents, as well as a map of the figures and their correlating objects. Judgment has also supplied a number for each figure which he states corresponds to the number of services it must perform before release. It is assumed that the services to which Judgment refers are executions. As there is no way to know whether the information provided is accurate besides expending enough personnel to release the concerned object, further testing has been halted pending other possible detection methods. It is to be noted that SCP's tally is quite low. All personnel are to be reminded that under no circumstances are any personnel with suspected criminal behavioral patterns, past or present, to be allowed access to SCP-296. Failure to adhere to this directive will result in termination for all parties involved. SCP cannot be allowed to be released. Item Number: SCP-037. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedure: SCP-037 is magnetically contained in a subterranean complex known as Site-22. Object size, spectral signature, and temperature are constantly monitored both on-site and remotely from Site-98. The primary containment chamber is lined with heat-conducting, radiation-resistant nano-peak GFV polymer tiles and evacuated of any atmosphere. Heat from the object is radiated into the surrounding rock. Should enclosure integrity become compromised, The emergency system will generate a low-power argon plasma shield. This is projected to provide a minimum of 4 hours for on-site engineers to effect necessary repairs before the object breaches containment. In the contingency that stellar revolution proceeds ahead of projections and a nova event appears imminent, or if containment failure is otherwise unavoidable, any remaining project staff are authorized to initiate the PWOC protocol. Description: SCP-037 appears to be a star approximately 5 cm, 2 inches, in diameter, with a luminosity of about 1 × 10⁻12 times that of our Sun and a surface temperature of about 5000 Kelvin, determined by UV analysis. The origin of SCP-037 is unknown, however, analysis suggests that it shares many properties in common with a typical main sequence star, other than its anomalously small size. It is theorized to have entered the Earth's magnetosphere via the North Magnetic Pole. The object was discovered in above the Beaufort Sea at approximately the North Magnetic Pole. Intense electromagnetic interference was reported by Canadian Forces Station Alert, followed by an extremely bright object descending toward the ocean from the sky. The SCP's Guardian responded and discovered the object wavering in an erratic trajectory about 200 meters above the surface of the water. Once containment procedures were devised, it was transported to Site 32 for study. Containment and transport of SCP-037 have been achieved by the use of powerful electromagnets, to which the artifact aligns itself according to its own magnetic field. The primary challenge to containment thus far has been its powerful electromagnetic emissions, which are intense enough to be easily seen by the naked eye from high Earth orbit. Its current enclosure is located deep underground to prevent detection and to facilitate radiative cooling into the surrounding bedrock. In effect, the entire facility and the surrounding volume of the Earth's crust act as a massive heat sink. Addendum A. Over the past years of study, the star has undergone a shift in iridium radiation, suggesting that it is undergoing stellar evolution at a vastly accelerated rate. If standard stellar modules hold up, this will soon result in an increase in radius by a factor of 100 to 300 times, and a concomitant increase in radiated energy. Emergency containment contingencies are being studied for that eventuality. Further progression of the star's life cycle will likely terminate in a stellar nova, which is estimated to have a yield of. Extrapolations predict this to occur in. Research is underway for a method to arrest this development or to transport SCP-037 a safe distance from the planet before it occurs. PWOC Protocol. Sent August 5, 1977. 2. 05 Council. From. Dr. Innes. Subject. SCP-037 Emergency Neutralization Research. Body.
Sirs and madams, the agents embedded with the US DoD have managed to alter the project requirement for the NASA Orbiter program. The vehicle will now be designed with enough space to accommodate SCP-037 and a temporary containment apparatus in order to facilitate transport off-planet. However, I continue to have reservations. Modern rocket technology simply is not reliable enough for the needs of this project. A single mistake could lead to launch failure and subsequent loss of containment, possibly catastrophically. Even a successful launch would have to proceed perfectly, lest the result be visible to observatories and instruments, and possibly the naked eye, around the world. There are numerous artifacts contained by the Foundation which might allow us to transport SCP-037 safely and cost-effectively to an adjacent dimension, universe, or esoteric domain. SCP, in particular, might prove especially convenient for this purpose, considering the outcomes of recent attempts to explore it and the difficulty of neutralization of SCP-037 might thus serve the added purpose of reducing or removing the threat posed by that anomaly, as well. I implore you to reconsider the PWOC proposal, submitted in light of these concerns.
End message.
Item Number, SCP-382. Object Class, Euclid. Special Containment Procedures, SCP-382-1 is to be stored in a standard site redacted containment room, inside a 1.5 by 1.5 by 1.5 meter plexiglass box of 5 cm thickness, at minimum. A video camera is to be kept trained on it at all times, though this is merely for observational purposes. Due to the area of influence and deleterious nature of SCP-382's effect, it should only be removed from its enclosure for testing purposes, with staff observing from a remote location. The manifestation of SCP-382-2 has so far been confined to SCP-382-1, and therefore requires no special containment procedures beyond those already in place for SCP-382-1, stricken. See Addendum 382-A. No personnel, Class D or otherwise, should interact with SCP-382-1 for more than 2 hours, unless accompanied by at least one armed agent. Description: in its inactive state, SCP-382-1 is a large baby carriage, manufactured in 19 redacted by redacted, and redacted of redacted, England. Its age shows: metal components are heavily rusted, the rubber of the tires is brittle, and the cushion is missing. SCP-382-2 appears to be an infant, between redacted and redacted months old, extremely emaciated, with several injuries that seem to vary with each manifestation. On different occasions, SCP-382-2 has shown heavy bruising, broken bones, and sometimes, data expunged, despite which 382-2 could still make vocalizations, although it is unknown how this was possible. When SCP-382-1 is not being interacted with, SCP-382-2 manifests every redacted to redacted minutes, staying between redacted and redacted minutes. However, when a person places their hands on the handlebars of the carriage, 382-2 will instantly manifest, and the period of time of both disappearance and reappearance will decrease to approximately 1 second. Any person who makes visual contact with SCP-382-1, from now on referred to as the subject, is compelled to approach it and place their hands on its handlebar. While manifesting only intermittently, SCP-382-2 appears to compound the effect when the subject sees it. This effect does not transmit through video feeds, transparent objects, or anything else that would separate SCP-382-1 and its victim, and once the subject is in contact with SCP-382-1, no one else will be influenced until the subject has died and SCP-382 has reset. As soon as the subject comes into physical contact with SCP-382-1 and SCP-382-2 has manifested, they appear to enter a trance, in which they will propel SCP-382-1 in a small circle and make noises directed at SCP-382-2, apparently intended to be soothing. As time passes, the subject will begin to weaken and their body will begin to degrade, while SCP-382-1 slowly begins to take on a new, shinier appearance. Rust will begin to flake off, revealing shiny metal underneath, the rubber wheels will become more supple, and a velvet cushion will appear inside. At the same time, each successive manifestation of SCP-382-2 will appear with fewer and fewer injuries, while looking less and less emaciated. The subject will continue to interact with SCP-382 up until just under 2 hours, at which point they will perish due to massive, widespread organ failure. As of yet, no subject has lasted for more than 2 hours, stricken. See Addendum 382-A. Once the subject has perished, SCP-382-2 will disappear and SCP-382-1 will return to its former, derelict appearance within 30 minutes. Addendum 382-A, on Redacted 20 Redacted, my research team and I began testing to determine whether a person of sufficient youth and physical fitness could sustain interaction with SCP-382 past the 2-hour mark. D-382-GTF-87 I was chosen for his age, only redacted years, and because he had been a physical trainer prior to, data expunged, and kept in shape throughout his incarceration at, redacted. His exposure to SCP-382 proceeded as normal, though the physical degradation appeared to progress at a slower rate than previous test subjects. After the 2-hour mark, with D-382-GTF-87 I still living, though in extremely poor condition, SCP-382-2 manifested as usual, but did not disappear 1 second later. SCP-382-2 then, data expunged, consuming the then mummified corpse of D-382-GTF-87I, and proceeded to, data expunged. Fortunately, only one other Class D was killed before SCP-382-2 was terminated by Agent Redacted, but the event has necessitated the amending of the SCP-382-2's special containment procedures somewhat. I don't feel that this warrants a change in classification level. Dr. Redacted. Item Number, SCP-505. Object Class, Keter. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-505 is contained in a 50-meter by 40-meter by 10-meter room at Site Redacted. SCP-505's containment area is to be sealed other than one secure airlock in a series of pipes allowing transport of SCP-505-1 to storage tanks in the event of SCP-505-1 reaching levels in which it poses a danger to containment. Sprayers for 4-meter NaOH are to be available through SCP-505's containment area and the rest of Site Redacted to combat a containment breach. In the event of a spill of SCP-505-1, the affected area should immediately be covered with an absorbent material. Commercial blotting paper is currently standard for this purpose, and doused with alcohol or acetone if NaOH is not immediately available. NaOH immersion is the method of choice for SCP-505-1 containment, followed by incineration of affected material if practicable. There are currently redacted instances of SCP-505-1 points of secondary contamination outside SCP-505's primary containment area. Containment in these areas is variable, but efforts have been made to make procedures as similar to those of the primary site if possible. Of these secondary contamination zones, redacted are unable to be fully contained at this time, resulting in the spread of SCP-505-1 throughout the environment. These sites are to be monitored at all times and countermeasure development is of the highest priority. For a complete list of SCP-505-1 secondary containment sites, see Document 505-14A Redacted. Description: SCP-505 is a model redacted Faber-Castell fountain pen, produced in 2001. For documentation of its acquisition by the Foundation, see Addendum 505-2. It is identical in all respects to a standard fountain pen apart from its association with SCP-505-1. SCP-505-1 is the black ink produced by SCP-505, which exhibits the property of self-replication. SCP-505-1 spreads at a variable rate, affected by the substance it comes into contact with and the amount of SCP-505-1 present. Quantities of SCP-505-1 have been shown to increase at rates between 0.5 and 540 milliliters per second. Standard ink-removing chemicals are able to partially remove SCP-505-1 and inhibit its spread. However, sodium hydroxide is necessary to remove SCP-505-1 contamination completely, and is shown to be ineffective in environments with particularly high SCP-505-1 concentrations. Fortunately, the growth rate of SCP-505-1 appears to be inversely proportional to its quantity at high concentrations. Whilst the observed effects of this are negligible in most cases, this inverse growth phenomenon provides the only explanation for the partial containment of SCP-505-1 despite a number of cases of large-scale environmental contamination which were projected to otherwise lead to an NK-class end-of-the-world scenario. Whilst SCP-505-1 exhibits no unusual properties other than its constant spread and partial resistance to removal, it nonetheless poses serious difficulties for control. SCP-505-1 will flow across non-absorbent surfaces and pass through porous surfaces in an identical fashion to normal ink. All liquid or solid objects or beings in contact with SCP-505-1 will be contaminated. SCP-505-1 will still adhere to non-porous surfaces such as metals, but newly produced SCP-505-1 will constantly flow off. Non-porous materials are thus catalysts for SCP-505-1 spread, and all SCP-505-1 contamination should be covered in porous materials such as blotting paper for this reason. It is not possible to permanently contain SCP-505-1 in a non-porous container, as said container's contents will gradually increase in quantity, leading to increased pressure and subsequent rupture. All containers being used to contain SCP-505-1 must therefore be drained periodically to prevent a containment breach. SCP-505-1's effects on its environment are identical to those of an equivalent quantity of standard fountain pen ink. SCP-505-1 exposure will inevitably lead to the death of living organisms. Plant matter will be killed due to inhibition of photosynthesis, whereas animals will be killed due to chemical poisoning. In humans and other mammals, SCP-505-1 contact will most likely be via the skin, where it will spread until it reaches an orifice or a break in the skin and subsequently enter the vascular system through mucous membranes. SCP-505-1 will spread through the vasculature and have catastrophic effects on all organ systems it reaches, as it continuously replicates and is unable to be excreted by the urinary system. Cause of death is generally multiple organ failure, although in most cases affected individuals will be terminated and decontaminated prior to this. For containment procedures in these instances, see Addendum 505-1. SCP-505-1 also has an increased rate of spread through non-viscous fluids such as water, as would be expected of normal ink. Any contamination of the water table with SCP-505-1 must be prevented at all costs, due to the potential for an NK-class end-of-the-world scenario. It is unknown whether SCP-505-1's aforementioned property of an inversely proportional rate of spread will manifest in fluids, as experimentation with such high quantities of SCP-505-1 is strictly forbidden. Thus, any environmental SCP-505-1 contamination in water sources must be met with immediate damming and drainage into storage tanks of all affected areas. Addendum 505-1. Procedures for dealing with SCP-505-1 contamination in humans. Administration of multiple-dose activated charcoal has been shown to slow the progress of SCP-505-1 contamination in humans but is unable to halt the process. The only known methods of treatment for SCP-505-1 contamination in humans are by immediate excision of the affected area or continuous application of ethanol to an affected skin region. Topical ethanol treatment will not prevent the affected individual from transmitting SCP-505-1 to other surfaces and is thus highly discouraged except in the cases of essential personnel, in which case containment procedures must be observed as in all other sites of secondary SCP-505-1 contamination. In theory, excision or amputation of affected areas would be the gold standard for treatment, but contamination of surgical instruments and personnel remains a problem. Therefore, all cases of SCP-505-1 contamination in humans other than essential personnel should be dealt with by termination followed by standard procedure of 4-meter NaOH immersion and incineration of the remains. Addendum 505-2, SCP-505 Retrieval History. SCP-505 was acquired by the Foundation from the town of Redacted in Oman, when the town in question was quarantined by the Omani government due to reports of a black fluid beginning to seep out from the town's post office and causing the deaths of a number of its inhabitants. Fortuitously, the arid and remote location of the incident prevented wide-scale environmental contamination of SCP-505-1. The Foundation retrieved SCP-505-1 with redacted casualties. No other anomalous properties of the town's post office or the town itself were detected. It was deemed necessary to terminate redacted civilian inhabitants of Redacted who were deemed likely to be contaminated. The incident was reported as a non-extranormal chemical spill. Item Number, SCP-340. Object Class, Safe. Special Containment Procedures, SCP-340-1, 3, 4, and 5 are to be communally housed in a 10-meter x 10-meter x 2.5-meter tank, with the water temperature maintained between 25 degrees Celsius and 30 degrees Celsius. Antidepressants and broad-spectrum antibiotics are to be administered intravenously every 12 hours. Medicinal compounds may not be added to the standard nutritive paste without approval. All waste products must be properly sterilized. Any personnel who aspirate water from the containment tank must report to medical staff immediately. Description: SCP-340 is produced by a human-specific virus which preferentially colonizes the nasal cavities. The virus cannot be identified according to the Baltimore classification scheme, leading Foundation researchers to believe it was engineered by parties as yet unidentified. The presence of genes from both HIV and the SARS coronavirus supports this hypothesis. An incubation period, with a mean duration of 3 days, occurs upon initial exposure to the virus. Influenza-like symptoms will then develop, and will persist for a mean of 7 days before clearing up. An increased production of mucus has been observed in all known cases, and will persist after other symptoms have ceased. Virulence is highest during the first 5 days of infection, but viral particles have been detected up to a month after exposure in foundation trials. Any time after infection, a high blood concentration of carbon dioxide will trigger production of SCP-340. When initially produced, SCP-340 is a jelly-like mucus, which exudes to cover the lower half of the face, including the nose and mouth. SCP-340 in mucus form will undergo a catalytic reaction when immersed in water and will set into a bioplastic membrane. The chemical composition of the bioplastic facilitates the data expunged process. Although it causes SCP-340 to degrade, the process allows the host to breathe underwater. The membrane is flexible and does not inhibit the host's facial movement. Any tears or holes which develop due to mechanical stress or SCP-340 degradation will be regenerated within 30 seconds due to constant production of SCP-340. Virulence is drastically reduced in this stage, but viral particles have been detected in water samples contaminated with SCP-340. Environmental contact may still spread the infection. When SCP-340 is exposed to air, it dries into a chitinous substance similar to crustacean shells. The water vapor trapped inside an SCP-340 sealed respiratory system is sufficient to prevent premature hardening. The hardening process also destroys its ability to data expunged, and loss of function is irreversible after approximately 2 minutes exposure to air. Once fully hardened, SCP-340 is impossible to remove without inflicting major tissue damage. It is harder than any generally known organic substance. A standard tungsten carbide drill bit required more than 15 minutes of constant use to drill a hole through 5 mm of dried SCP-340. Research is ongoing into methods for the in vitro culture and harvest of SCP-340 for use in industrial applications. Addendum 340-1 Circumstances of Retrieval on 20 redacted 12 students at a boarding school in redacted, United States, began to produce SCP-340 during a swimming competition. 9 died before a Foundation containment team could be dispatched to the site. 5 suffocated when attempts to clear airways of hardened SCP-340 failed. 2 suffocated after attempts to open alternate airways induced hardening of air-exposed SCP-340 in the trachea, and 2 died from dehydration. Upon arrival, the Foundation containment team quarantined the school until the infection spread could be determined. 4 additional cases were discovered who were not yet producing SCP-340. All 7 were taken into Foundation custody. The team then distributed Class A amnestics and followed cover-up procedure Gimel-2, the tragic fire scenario. For a brief summary of the 7 SCP-340 carriers, now denoted SCP-340-1 through 7, see Document 340-1. Addendum 340-2, SCP-340 doesn't kill the host's oral bacteria, and the antibiotics can't stave off infection forever. Surgical removal of the host's teeth will be safer in the long run than trying to deal with abscesses, bone infection, and sepsis. Do we have a laparoscopic surgeon on staff? Dr. Cairns. Document 340-1 Inventory, SCP-340-1 through 7, SCP-340-1, Caucasian male. Age at retrieval, 12. SCP-340 production at retrieval, positive. Notes, housed at site redacted. SCP-340-2, African American male. Age at retrieval, 12. SCP-340 production at retrieval, positive. Notes, deceased 20 redacted, complications from surgical insertion of feeding tube. SCP-340-3, Caucasian male. Age at retrieval, 11. SCP-340 production at retrieval, positive. Notes, housed at site redacted. SCP-340-4, Hispanic male. Age at retrieval, 12. SCP-340 production at retrieval, negative. Notes: underwent experimental treatment, 20 redacted, treatment failed, SCP-340 production induced, housed at site redacted. SCP-340-5, Caucasian male. Age at retrieval, 27. SCP-340 production at retrieval, negative. Notes: refused experimental treatment, voluntarily induced SCP-340 production, 20 redacted, housed at site redacted. SCP-340-6, Caucasian male. Age at retrieval, 12. SCP-340 production at retrieval, negative. Notes: underwent experimental treatment, 20 redacted, treatment failed, SCP-340 production induced, deceased 20 redacted, voluntary self-termination. SCP-340-7, Caucasian male. Age at retrieval, 13. SCP-340 production at retrieval, negative. Notes: underwent experimental treatment, 20 redacted, treatment initially believed successful, deceased 20 redacted, suffocation due to unexpected SCP-340 production. Item number, SCP-391. Object Class, Safe. Special Containment Procedures, SCP-391 is to be kept in a 5 by 5 by 5 meter aviary, made of heavy steel mesh. Structures mimicking mixed broadleaf deciduous and pine forests should be placed inside the aviary. Artificial lights, mimicking normal day and night patterns, are to be kept well maintained. Temperature and humidity should be controlled to mimic a humid continental climate. The door to the aviary is to be kept locked at all times when SCP-391 is not being studied, maintained, or fed. Personnel exiting the aviary are to be searched for objects removed from the aviary. Personnel attempting to remove material from the aviary without permission will be reprimanded. Description: SCP-391 is a single female specimen of Tyto alba, or common barn owl. Pellets regurgitated by SCP-391 are typically comprised of some form of precious metal. The metal produced seems to vary with the type of prey ingested. The owl, nicknamed Midas, has been documented regurgitating gold, silver, platinum, and other precious metals. Refer to the SCP-391 test logs for more information. SCP-391 was acquired in 20 redacted, after Park Ranger redacted reported finding nuggets of gold resembling owl pellets. The Foundation found the report during a routine information sweep. All owls in a 50 km radius were tranquilized and captured under the guise of a tagging and tracking experiment. Agents examined and released over redacted owls before SCP-391 was found. Addendum 391-01, after several examinations by Foundation veterinarians, no anomalies have been found within SCP-391. Other than its unusual ability, SCP-391 is a normal, adult member of its species. Addendum 391-02, due to repeated contact with researchers Dr. Redacted and Dr. Redacted, SCP-391 has become accustomed to some human contact. However, SCP-391 is still a wild animal, and should be treated with caution and respect. Note: Dr. Redacted requested permission to breed SCP-391 to see whether the trait would be passed to its young. Request pending approval from the site director. SCP-391 Experiment Log. Note: these experiments were carried out after SCP-391 was kept on a restricted diet of boneless, skinless chicken for a week. Researchers also withheld food for 12 hours prior to testing. Name: Dr. Redacted. Date: Redacted 20 Redacted. Item: 1 320-gram white rat. Reaction: SCP-391 excitedly killed and ate the rat. Output: 163-gram indium pellet. Note: what was remarkable is the size of the pellet. It was the same size as a pellet from a normal owl. There couldn't have been more than 10 g of indigestible material on the rat, but the pellet weighed the correct weight for a piece of indium of that size. It seems that whatever is facilitating the change in matter doesn't adhere to the law of conservation of mass. Name: Dr. Redacted. Date, redacted 20 redacted. Item, 1 320-gram black rat. Reaction, same as the white rat. Output, same as the white rat. Note, SCP-391 was placed in an enclosed system where all mass and energy input was carefully measured, and showed a gradual increase in mass about 2 hours after ingestion. No energy or mass change in the system could account for this increase. It seems color is not important to the reaction. The pellet produced, however, can't yet be explained without violating the basic laws of physics. Name, Dr. Redacted. Date, redacted 20 redacted. Item, 1 320-gram black rat. Reaction, same as previous tests. Output, same as previous tests. Note, the rat used in the test was radio-labeled, and the digestion process was observed with specialized equipment. The meat of the rat was separated from the fur and bone, and digested as one would expect in a regular owl. The extra mass in the pellet is not coming from the ingested material itself.
Item Number, SCP-160. Object Class, Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-160 is kept in a secure biocontainment chamber at site. SCP-160 is to be fed live prey in the form of a rabbit or other animal of similar mass once per week, with feeding to be performed via automated delivery system only. Experimentation with SCP-160 may only be performed with prior permission from at least 2 Level 3 personnel, and any personnel entering the chamber must wear an armored suit at all times. Description: SCP-160 appears to be a quadriflyer unmanned aerial vehicle, UAV, with a diameter of approximately 1.1 meters at its widest point, similar to the model manufactured by the corporation. It is devoid of any identifying marks or manufacturing labels, though visual inspection of SCP-160 has revealed signs of scratches and other superficial damage indicating that prior identifying labels may have been removed. SCP-160 operates continuously and completely autonomous from any identified control source, and exhibits behavior similar to that of predatory birds. It will actively hunt prey such as rodents and other small animals and, upon locating such prey, dive down at high speed and impale its prey with what appears to be a metallic proboscis. Analysis of its prey shows that it then injects a highly caustic substance that liquefies the internal organs, and extracts the resulting slurry. SCP-160 will generally avoid humans and larger animals, but has been recorded using its proboscis in self-defense. Injuries inflicted by SCP-160 are extremely painful, and can cause death via liquefaction of vital organs or internal bleeding. Further research on SCP-160 is underway, but has proven difficult due to SCP-160's continuous operation. Tranquilizer darts are ineffective as SCP-160 appears to be entirely composed of non-biological components, and requests to attempt a low-intensity electromagnetic pulse to disable it have been rejected due to possible unforeseen damage. SCP-160 was discovered by Foundation agents on 2000, following multiple reports of household pets from the town of disappearing and subsequently being found dead under unusual circumstances. SCP-160 was quickly identified and lured into a transport vehicle by a containment team and subsequently taken to site. A search of the area turned up over desiccated small animals including house cats, rabbits, wild rodents, and miniature dogs.
Item Number, SCP-347. Object Class, Euclid. With proper counseling, SCP-347 may be considered safe eventually. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-347 is currently kept at Site-17 in a 5 meter by 5 meter room monitored by infrared camera, with attached bathroom complete with shower and bathtub, furnished as per request, containing a queen-sized bed, several Sumo brand furniture items, 2 armchairs, a desk and swivel chair, several bookcases and a TV with a DVD player. The bookcases are filled with various books, primarily adventure novels, Harlequin romances, and art books. She is allowed DVDs of various movies and TV shows predating her arrival at the SCP facility, and may request new material to be reviewed every so often. Although SCP-347 does not wear clothing much of the time, she is to be allowed a wardrobe of whatever clothes she requests, as well as makeup and wigs for her own amusement. SCP-347's room must remain locked while she is within, and at least 2 staff members must check her door for any sign of tampering every hour. The door may primarily be unlocked to allow staff to and from her room. SCP-347 enjoys company and casually chats and flirts with staff who bring meals and other items, although staff are cautioned from developing too much of an attachment or attraction. SCP-347 is allowed to leave the room provided that she is accompanied by at least 1 staff member of at least Level 2 security and must apply a layer of grease paint to her face and wear gloves, to indicate hands and facial expression. Personnel are urged not to say anything should SCP-347 choose to leave her room nude, and crude remarks are frowned upon. Should SCP-347 attempt violent action or escape, she is to be restrained immediately and returned to her room, with the door securely locked. Should SCP-347 successfully disappear from under the staff's nose, infrared heat vision goggles will be dispensed and strange occurrences must be reported immediately as signs of her. For security reasons, SCP-347 is not allowed contact with any other SCPs as of yet. Description: SCP-347 is an adult or young adult female, standing at 164 centimeters tall, and 55 kilograms in weight. Despite being a seemingly average woman between the age of 19 and 25, SCP-347 is completely invisible. This also includes everything inside her body at any given moment, although her waste products and saliva appear once they lose contact with her, but her blood, skin, and hair samples all remain invisible. Testing has confirmed that she has normal eyesight, despite the fact that the cones and rods of the eyes must be visible in order for a human to see. SCP-347 describes herself as being an average female of mixed race, with brown eyes and wavy black hair, and refers to herself as Claudia, although it is highly likely that this is a false name taken from the actor Claude Rains, the lead of The Invisible Man. Her true identity has not been ascertained. Aside from her invisibility, SCP-347 has no unusual traits other than immense skill in picking locks, theft, and has been observed swallowing small objects in order to turn them invisible, displaying the ability to regurgitate them at will without dispensing all the contents of her stomach as well, a trick she claims she came up with after watching a Stevie Star performance on a late-night show. SCP-347 was recovered and redacted, after local news and rumors about a poltergeist inhabiting an abandoned house drew attention of SCP staff in the area. After infrared cameras revealed that she still gave off a human heat signature, SCP-347 was quickly captured and after much deliberation willingly entered into SCP custody, asking for warm food and protection from the elements. It has been theorized that she had been living on the street and in abandoned buildings for several years, although SCP-347 had adamantly refused to discuss such things. 2 deaths and several apparent incidences of ghost activity have also been attributed to her. When first recovered, SCP-347 showed signs of mental instability and violent outbursts, as well as compulsive theft and bouts of refusing to speak for several days on end. Traditional counseling methods have helped reduce the frequency and severity of such issues, and it's theorized that with more time SCP-347 may heal from the trauma of years of not being seen and being completely alone. It has been suggested that SCP-347 be introduced to other SCPs, as human contact appears to be quite pleasing, and she greatly enjoys being acknowledged without being seen as strange. When ignored, SCP-347 does not seem to demand attention, but rather toys with people by rearranging things and hiding things. When left alone with somebody who is sleeping or otherwise distracted, it should be noted that SCP-347 will touch and stroke a sleeping person, tuck in their blankets, and do other small things. SCP-347 has confirmed that this behavior just feels right, although the person it's done to often describes it as unnerving. Although SCP-347 is invisible in all terms of visible light, she may still be observed via ultraviolet or infrared cameras. Addendum: Dr. Wrights has requested that all male personnel in contact with SCP-347 politely refuse advances. See Document 347-01. Document 347-01. She's an invisible kleptomaniac. When you leave, afterward, you're going to realize 3 seconds too late that you don't have your keys in your pocket anymore, and you will be held accountable for whatever happens. Besides, the last thing we need is an invisible pregnancy. Doctor writes. Item number, SCP-389. Object Class, Safe. Special Containment Procedures, SCP-389 requires no exceptional containment. When not in use, it is stored on a shelf in the office of Dr. Redacted at Site Redacted due to the site's proximity to the sea. Description: SCP-389 is a green glass bottle, approximately 45 centimeters in length. There are no markings or other distinguishing features on it. SCP-389 appears highly resistant to damage, having been dropped or knocked from its shelf multiple times with no fractures, chips, or other damage. Analysis of the material it is made of show it to be identical to normal glass. Object was discovered on, data expunged, in the possession of a 15-year-old girl named Redacted. She shared the history of the object as she knew it, which was, she discovered it on the beach approximately 6 years ago. On a whim, she composed a note, placed it inside SCP-389, and threw the object into the sea. Several days later she returned, to find SCP-389 washed up on shore, with a reply enclosed. She had been corresponding with another person this way ever since this discovery. Upon testing, it was discovered that this phenomenon appears to work with any note, and after being cast into the sea, would return at high tide the following day, containing a letter. A test consisting of sending the bottle without a note ended with the discovery of the still empty bottle the next day. Messages received are written in English, and appear to have been produced with a mechanical typewriter. The composer of the letters seems loath to reveal any personal details beyond her name, schedule, and sex. Any questions about or requests for her geographic location are ignored. Schedule will describe the area surrounding her home, wildlife, food, culture, customs, and apparently anything not relating specifically to herself readily and in detail when possible, though her knowledge of many things is limited. Many of the things described are unusual, among them are trees that uproot themselves and migrate, and the life cycle of insects physically resembling coccinellidæ, colloquially known as ladybugs, which at one point includes multiple larval members of the species gathering, spontaneously liquefying into a single mass, then reforming again as adults. Tracking devices sent along with SCP-389, regardless of whether they are contained within it or simply affixed to its outside, invariably fail after SCP-389 is beyond approximately 100 meters from the shore. All other attempts to track SCP-389 have likewise resulted in failure.
Item number: SCP-239. Object Class: Keter. Special Containment Procedures: SCP-239 is to be kept within a one-room cell furnished with one bed, one EKG machine, and one to be filled with pentobarbital mixed with. To be refilled daily. Under no circumstances is SCP-239 to be removed from her containment area at any given time. The walls of this cell are to be coated in a teleca-lead alloy. Only Class II personnel are allowed any contact with SCP-239 at any time. All personnel guarding SCP-239's containment area are to be equipped with teleca headgear. SCP-148. Subject's proper name is Sigur Stefan Stodier. Under absolutely no condition should the subject ever be awakened. Any personnel found attempting to awaken the subject will be immediately terminated. Description: SCP-239 appears to be an 8-year-old girl, 1 meter in height and 20 kilograms in weight. Subject has shoulder-length blonde hair. Upon closer inspection, the subject's eyes shimmer a gray-green shade. Subject seems to emit a previously undiscovered form of radiation, which has been named. These waves seem to be harmless in low concentrations, but in higher concentrations they could break down matter on a subatomic level. SCP-239 seemingly has the ability to do whatever she expresses a will to do. Put simply, the subject can do anything that she truly wants to do on a basal psychological level as long as she is conscious. Fortunately, she only seems to be able to affect herself and her immediate surroundings, therefore, if she can see it, she can change it. It would not be the most prudent course of action, however, to try to test how powerful she can be. She seems to be able to create and affect living matter. For example, when a D-class personnel accidentally caused her harm, she simply wished him away. Fortunately, when the subject was made to feel guilty for what she had done, she wished him back. SCP-239's self-preservation instinct makes her virtually invincible while she is conscious. Subject's skin cannot be punctured by anything, excepting SCP-148. As a method of controlling the subject's ability, she has been told that she is a witch. This, besides improving morale greatly, makes her believe that she is unable to use her abilities outside of a pre-approved list of spells given to her by the SCP Foundation. This will hopefully prevent any and all attempted escapes. However, the subject is to be kept calm at all times to prevent any subconscious wish of harm to herself or others. Origin: SCP-239 came to the attention of the Foundation very soon after her birth in approximately 3 hours after subject's birth. Hospital was destroyed by an unexplained explosion. The press was informed that it was due to a gas leak. SCP teams were dispatched shortly to search the site for any abnormalities. The only living person they were able to locate was SCP-239. For the next 8 years, the subject was raised under SCP care. As of 20, subject is to be kept in a medically induced coma until further notice. This decision was made by SCP-239 is permanently contained in Site-17. Note from Dr. Dated December 26, 2004.
Who the hell thought it would be a good idea to tell her about Santa Claus, and then tell her that it was just a story? Now we have another potential SCP to deal with, but we can't catch him because he is magic.
Dr. Cliff's report.
My analysis of the situation has led me to the conclusion that SCP-239 is an unacceptable containment and security risk. Although several proposals have been made using her for containing other SCPs, the example of SCP-953 and others must serve as a stark reminder of the risks of overestimating the Foundation's ability to control SCPs with reality-altering powers. I would therefore like to make the following proposal. A piercing implement will be constructed of SCP-148, capable of penetrating SCP-239's otherwise impenetrable skin. This tool will be used to kill SCP-239 while she is asleep and her powers are neutralized. Because of the danger of SCP-239 awakening and resisting termination, it is my recommendation that the selected operative carry SCP-668 as well, in order to minimize complications. One of the dangers of this procedure is the possibility that SCP-239 will awaken and perceive the operative as a friend or good person, thus changing reality to match. It is for this reason that I would like to volunteer to carry out the procedure personally. A review of my personnel file should indicate that my should allow me to carry out the operation even after a reality shift of this nature.
Clef. Item Number: SCP-228. Object Class: Safe. Special Containment Procedures: SCP-228 will be used to conduct experimental psychiatric testing as Site-23. SCP-228 is to be kept under glass in Observation Room 113 ADC at Site-23. Access to Observation Room 113 ADC will require either Level 4 authorization or a signed notification from Medical Director Light. Observation Room 113 ADC is to be monitored by no fewer than 4 high-definition video cameras and a reinforced one-way observation mirror running the full length of the east wall. When a subject observes SCP-228, their reaction is to be documented by no fewer than 5 researchers stationed behind the observation mirror, as well as the subject's accompanying psychiatrist. Description: SCP-228 is a Polaroid photograph of variable appearance. It is apparent at this time that SCP-228 derives its subject matter from the subconscious mind of the viewer. The images produced are always visually clear, but vary in interpretive coherency. For example, one viewer may cause SCP-228 to manifest a clear portrait of that viewer's father, while another causes an image of a heart-shaped object submerged in green fluid to The coherence of the image produced by SCP-228 appears to vary from subject to subject, and is theorized to have some connection to the viewer's emotional state. SCP-228's various image manifestations can be photographed normally, although the photographs will not display the ability to manifest new images. It will manifest an image when viewed remotely by a video feed. After SCP-228 has manifested an image, it will remain inert, displaying the same image, until that viewer looks away. At that point, it will adapt its manifestation to reflect that of the current viewer. The question of what SCP-228 manifests when unobserved is moot. SCP-228 will be used to assist members of the psychiatric staff at Site-23. During psychoanalysis, the patient, hereafter referred to as the subject, will be asked leading questions and instructed to look at SCP-228. Once the manifestation has been recorded, the subject will be instructed to look away. At no point should the interviewer view SCP-228 before the subject, as this will corrupt the record and potentially skew psychoanalysis of the subject. Addendum. As if no personnel who have previously been exposed to a visual mimetic agent is authorized for exposure to SCP-228, due to the possibility of
Item Number, SCP-548. Object Class, Euclid. Special Containment Procedures, SCP-548 is to be kept at 24 degrees Celsius in a 50 by 50 cm terrarium. The enclosure is to be composed of modified borosilicate glass with high thermal shock resistance, or of other materials not rendered brittle by sudden temperature changes of greater than 50 degrees Celsius. In the event that SCP-548 makes an active attempt to grind through the terrarium walls, the enclosure is to be flooded immediately with 500 ml liquid nitrogen and the subject removed temporarily to a reinforced steel terrarium. Subject is to be fed mice, one every 4 days. SCP-548 should not be handled except as needed for testing. Handlers must be at least cursorily familiar with tarantula behavior and wear heavily insulated gloves. Should subject display any aggressive behavior, cease handling promptly. If bitten, personnel should be treated immediately for hypothermia and frostbite. Active intrathoracic warming with heated fluids is indicated for severe bites. Description: SCP-548 is a female cobalt tarantula, 7.3 cm long. Its venom undergoes a highly endothermic reaction on contact with living tissue. A single bite, injecting less than 0.5 ml venom, causes an average temperature drop of 38 degrees Celsius in the affected area. One bite is sufficient to cause localized frostbite in a human, and may even be lethal should the venom reach the central circulatory system. Victims smaller than SCP-548 are frequently frozen solid. SCP-548's feeding structures are normal for a spider of its species except for the maxillae, which are extremely hard and serrated. It feeds by delivering a venomous bite, then dragging the prey to a safe place while it cools. While secluded, it proceeds to grind the prey's still frozen tissue into edible fragments. This feeding style requires unusual mouthpart strength. Addendum: SCP-548, like most Cereopagopus species, usually avoids contact with humans. If cornered, however, it quickly turns aggressive, attempting to bite its perceived attacker before fleeing. The object may be frozen solid with no apparent ill effects. It has survived repeated freezings, each time resuming normal behavior upon thawing. Further research is required to ascertain the mechanism of this resistance and to determine its suitability for long-term storage. Addendum 2. It is possible that the same anomalous effect that was historically responsible for SCP-2082 may now be affecting SCP-548. Research into this link is currently underway using SCP-2082 tissue samples preserved following Incident 2082-Prime. Proposals to resume the SCP-2082 cloning program for use of a live specimen have been denied. Item Number, SCP-310. Object Class, Safe. Special Containment Procedures. When not used in experimentation, SCP-310 is to be kept in a 0.3 x 0.3 x 0.3 m sealed vacuum case composed of flame-retardant material. The research chamber surrounding the vacuum case shall be similarly flame retardant and be kept saturated with carbon dioxide, nitrogen, or other fire-extinguishing agent when testing is not taking place. Standard foundation protocols to prevent unauthorized access should be kept in place. No flammable or semi-flammable substances are permitted within the research chamber, except small quantities for research purposes. Authorization is required for testing on live or otherwise self-propelling test subjects. Chamber is to be kept sealed during testing and emergency vacuum system is to remain active. All personnel are forbidden to wear loose clothing when in chamber. Long hair must be kept tied up. Flame retardant suits are recommended. Memo #310AA, for the last time, loose clothing includes ties. Regardless of the normal dress code encouraged on site, we want to avoid any more cases like Dr. Redacted. No item should be worn that might allow accidental contact with SCP-310. Dr. John Drake. Any object which contacts SCP-310 is to remain in the chamber until fully consumed. Any item or clothing contacting SCP-310 is to be removed as expeditiously as possible while preventing further contact. Any limb or extremity contacting SCP-310 is to be removed immediately. Surgical tools including bone saws are to be kept on hand for this eventuality, as well as bolt cutters and power saws in case time factors prevent a more controlled amputation from being performed. Any Class D personnel contacting SCP-310 are to be immediately terminated. If exposure of SCP-310 to Class D personnel is part of test procedure, it is recommended that the test subject is restrained prior to exposure to prevent further accidental contact. The research chamber is to remain sealed until all objects exposed to SCP-310 are fully consumed. Therefore, it is recommended to limit size of test subjects to prevent lengthy lockdowns of research chamber. Description: SCP-310 is a 157 mm tall white candle, composed of apparently standard tallow. SCP-310 is an unmarked 33 mm diameter cylinder with tapered tip, out of which emerges 7 mm of wick. When not immersed in an oxygen-free medium, the wick produces a steady 24 mm tall flame. This flame can be extinguished through most conventional means: removal of oxygen, immersion in non-flammable fluid, application of sudden intense airflow. However, on the removal of the inhibiting factor, the flame immediately reappears, behaving much like a standard trick candle. Only a small amount of tallow is liquefied at the base of the wick, and is not consumed by the flame. Even during the longest duration removed from containment, redacted days from redacted to redacted as a result of the events of data expunged, at no time during those weeks was the tallow level nor the overall height of SCP-310 observed to decrease. Other than its interaction with the flame of SCP-310, the tallow itself is not unusual in any respect. Tallow removed from SCP-310 is designated SCP-310-01 and is classified safe. It is easily cut and as malleable as would be expected. It also melts and burns as normal when exposed to ordinary flame. Any tallow removed from SCP-310 is slowly replaced by unknown means. If SCP-310 is cut short, tallow will grow from the lit section until the original 157 mm height and unblemished appearance is restored. In one experiment, SCP-310 was placed in a heat chamber, melting the entire volume of tallow so only the wick remained. The flame remained lit even without fuel and gradually exuded tallow until its original state was restored. Any flammable or semi-flammable substance which comes into contact with SCP-310 becomes ignited with a slow-spreading fire. Unlike the flame of SCP-310, this fire cannot be extinguished by any known means other than exhausting its fuel supply. Experiments have shown that the fire will continue to burn even in a vacuum, underwater, in a nitrogen-saturated environment, under intense airflow, in a refrigerated environment, encased in a fire-retardant covering, or any combination of the above. Only total consumption of all flammable material in contact with the flames will result in them becoming extinguished. Any object ignited by SCP-310 are designated SCP-310-02 and are classified Euclid until fully consumed, whereupon they revert to safe classification. Therefore, in the case of accidental ignition, especially of personnel. Separating the lit section from the rest of object as soon as possible is the only way to preserve the rest of the exposed object. SCP-310-02 objects are also capable of spreading to other flammable or semi-flammable objects, resulting in further SCP-310-02 type objects. The implications of such possibility for chain reaction are worrisome. Tests have shown that bodily contact with SCP-310 is similar to normal immolation, that is, highly painful and damaging. Damage is somewhat more extensive than that of normal flames, probably due to inability to extinguish and the unusually slow rate of spread of SCP-310-02. No unusual psychic or mimetic properties have been observed. The means by which SCP-310-02 objects are able to continue burning despite all efforts to extinguish is unknown. It is also unknown why SCP-310 itself is so easy to extinguish, albeit temporarily. Recovery: SCP-310 was recovered from the charred remains of Redacted, a hamlet outside of Redacted, UK. The isolated nature of the site is probably responsible for the containment of the resulting blaze, which firefighters had battled unsuccessfully for 8 hours before abandoning the buildings to the flames. In the subsequent investigation, 7 people expired, either through contact with SCP-310 or cross-contact with earlier victims. The event drew Foundation attention and SCP-310 was recovered without incident, due to precautions taken by Agent Redacted based on existing evidence. A further investigation of the site revealed that it was being used as data expunged. The involvement of that organization may go some way to explaining why SCP-310 was located where it was, what it had been used for, and how it started the blaze that led to its recovery by the Foundation. However, the question of SCP-310's origin is still open. Item Number: SCP-499. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures: SCP-499 is to be contained within a circular containment unit, measuring 60 meters in diameter, with a shallow trench measuring 110 centimeters around the perimeter to contain SCP-499-2. The chamber is not to be entered during daylight hours except in cases of extreme emergency. If the chamber must be entered, personnel are to wear a Grade C heat hazard suit and appropriate eye protection. Food, water, and medication are to be supplied in appropriate amounts, as according to Document 499-CE, during nighttime hours. All loose items in the chamber are to be removed before sunrise. Under no circumstances is SCP-499's daytime behavior to be interrupted. Description: SCP-499 is a human male of indeterminate race, standing 1.75 meters tall and of at least 80 years of age. There is heavy burn scarring present on the subject's body, primarily on the face, hands, arms, and chest. SCP-499's eyes are severely damaged by light overexposure, and its respiratory system by smoke inhalation, rendering it effectively blind and mute. SCP-499 will remain passive to any direct interaction. As appropriate for its age, SCP-499 displays typical physical effects of aging, including a weak heart, poor eyesight, and moderate to severe arthritis. In addition, X-ray analysis has shown no less than 21 healed bone breaks and hairline fractures, most located in the ribs and left leg. Of note is SCP-499's abnormal resistance to heat. It is capable of resisting temperatures above boiling point for hours. SCP-499-2 is a metallic sphere, measuring 1.1 meters in diameter, consisting primarily of nickel-iron alloy. The surface is engraved with abstract designs across the entirety of its surface. The item is incredibly dense, and weighs approximately 5,900 kilograms. Despite this weight, SCP-499-2 may be moved by human beings, though with severe difficulty. At sunrise, local time, SCP-499-2 will begin to emit light of approximately 100,000 lumens and heat of approximately 120 degrees Celsius. SCP-499 will then begin to push SCP-499-2 in a wide circle, with SCP-499-2's position relative to the diameter of the circle when aligned to geographic north correlating with the relative angle of the Sun above the horizon in the local time zone. At sunset, local time, SCP-499-2 will return to its inactive metallic state. Each complete circle will take approximately 48 hours. Addendum 01, at 2:33 p.m., redacted 20 redacted, SCP-499 collapsed for unknown reasons. The medical staff on hand managed to resuscitate the subject after 28 minutes, at which point SCP-499 continued its circuit. During the 28 minutes of inactivity, the sun was seen to remain at the same angle respective to the horizon without change. When SCP-499 resumed usual behavior, the sun returned to its appropriate position and movement. Appropriate cover-up measures in the affected area were taken immediately afterwards. Addendum 02, redacted, 2012, a message written by SCP-499 using its feces was discovered by staff cleaning the containment chamber. As best as can be determined, the message was as follows: "Where's my son? Where are the others? Where, illegible."
Item number: SCP-090. Object Class: Keter. Special Containment Procedures: Artifact is to be held in a secure bunker in the facility at site, and constantly monitored by approved Class D personnel. The object's new arrangement is to be imaged every time it shifts. New arrangements are fed into the facility's Class OT supercomputer. Division Chief is to be notified of all changes and current estimates every half hour. No personnel is to touch SCP-090 except under order. AXA security level has been created for monitoring SCP-090. Non-AXA personnel found in the facility will be terminated. Description: SCP-090 was located and retrieved on April 10, 19. Prior to retrieval, SCP-090 had been located in a chamber at the nearby cathedral. SCP-090 was removed, the cathedral burned, 6 monks and the priest were terminated. SCP-090 has been located at site since the retrieval. Object's initial location prior to the cathedral is unrecorded. SCP-090 is a black cubic structure, 20 cm by 20 cm by 20 cm, made of an unknown ceramic material. Object is classified as indestructible following tests outlined in Document 090-B, unattached. Each side is divided into 10,000 individual squares in arrangement similar to a Rubik's Cube, 100 segments per edge, each segment 2 mm wide. Each square has part of a design etched into the surface. Etchings glow white. Unknown internal structure causes the realignment of a single row or column, roughly, every 2.8 seconds. Vague records of the object's alignments have been kept since 1242 CE, but those kept before 1533 CE have been lost. Modern technology has allowed the exact alignments to be imaged and recorded, as well as studied. Segments are divided by a thin white line unless they are aligned correctly with the square directly adjacent to them. There are 22 correct alignments on the object's surface currently. See 25.090.090.04d, unattached, for complete current object alignment. D023-016-024-016-024-015 is currently the only alignment of 3 adjacent segments on the surface of SCP-090. B100-23-100-24-099-024-098-024 and CO43077-042-076-042-076-042-075 are the 4-segment alignments. There is also a 6-segment alignment. See Document 090-B for research notes involving alignment effects. Full item completion has been hypothesized to cause an unparalleled disaster to occur. Addendum: AXA security level personnel should see Document 090-B. Document 090-A. Dr. Experiment Notes.
Experiment 0012. Observation is going well. We have managed to develop a system to record and analyze the shifts in the cube almost as quickly as they occur. No correlation between shifts and any world events found yet. Experiment 0048. We observed a 6-segment alignment today on the first side. It was noted and passed without incident. 2 hours later, a research assistant returned from the break room with news that a tsunami had occurred in the Indian Ocean and caused hundreds of thousands of deaths and extensive property damage. No correlation is currently known, but we will make note of it. Experiment 0150. After our 120th alignment on the fourth side of the cube and 120th accident report in the lab, we are designating the fourth side as local, and will implement safety measures tomorrow. Staff are discouraged from making bets regarding the outcome of alignments. Experiment 0172. A 6-segment alignment was recorded this morning on the local side. As a safety precaution, site was evacuated. 2 hours later, a containment breach occurred, but resulted in no loss of life due to the evacuation. Object determined to predict events, not cause them. First side designated as global. Upgrade to Euclid status requested. Experiment 0240. We stepped up our experiments today by attempting to modify the cube itself. When D-class personnel attempted to make a shift, SCP-090 immediately created a 10-segment alignment of its own accord near the top left corner of the local side. Exactly 2 hours later, SCP broke containment and agents and were also lost during the incident. Recommend forced shift testing of SCP-090 postponed. Upgrade to Keter status approved as SCP-090 is obviously capable of causing events of its own accord. Object may be sentient.
Notice from the Foundation Records and Information Security Administration. Following the implementation of the Kraken Protocol on June 27, 1963, containment procedures for SCP-378 have been updated. Personnel assigned to the SCP-378 project are to review its updated documentation as soon as possible. Claudia Salvi, Director, RESA. Item Number, SCP-378. Object Class, Thaumiel. Special Containment Procedures, SCP-378 is to be contained in a subterranean entity containment terrarium. Temperature and humidity are to be maintained at levels optimal for the growth and habitation of Heterodermia cancro, footnote 1, Utica cave lichen, and Prenolepis everettman, footnote 2, North American cave ant. Twice per year, SCP-378 is to undergo a medical and psychological examination. Access to SCP-378's containment terrarium is separated from the surrounding facility by a decontamination chamber. Handling personnel are required to wear full body protection, and must be screened for SCP-378 prior to exiting decontamination. Infected personnel are to be terminated unless the position of SCP-378-1 or 3 is vacant, in which case they are to be assigned to the relevant position instead. As of the adoption of the Kraken Protocol, SCP-378's containment is focused on maintaining its 3 primary containment components. SCP-378-1 is housed in the Area 19 barracks. SCP-378-1 is employed as a maintenance technician with a security clearance of 0/19. Upon the death of the current SCP-378-1, brain-dead or comatose reserve personnel may be elected to replace it. As SCP-378-1 is the primary means of communication with SCP-378, care must be maintained to keep SCP-378-1's vocal functions in working order. SCP-378-2 currently takes the form of David Lockheed, a 36-year-old Caucasian male in the employ of the American Supernatural Containment Initiative, ASCI, as a clerical aide. To maintain the continued operations of the SCP Foundation in the United States, SCP-378-2 has been tasked with sabotaging ASCI operations against the Foundation, as well as collecting information in the Foundation's interests. SCP-378-2 is expected to follow a strict health and exercise regimen, due to the inherent difficulty in replacing it. SCP-378-3 currently takes the form of Lisa Martin, a 33-year-old Mexican-American female employee at the Spicy Crust Pizza in Staten Island. In the event of SCP-378-3's death, it must be replaced as soon as possible. Each component is fitted with a tracking device and an audio recorder. Each week, embedded agents stationed near each component are to evaluate the health and integrity of each component and its associated surveillance equipment. The utilization of SCP-378-A in further infiltration is pending Foundation Overwatch approval. Description: SCP-378 is an arthropod superficially resembling a deformed larval instance of Scolopendra gigantea, footnote 3, Amazonian giant centipede. SCP-378's legs are largely vestigial, primarily meant to assist in peristaltic locomotion. SCP-378 measures 3 meters from mouth to anus, with a bodily thickness of 1 meter and a weight of 233 kilograms. Under normal conditions, SCP-378 is an omnivore, with a diet consisting primarily of lichen and insects. SCP-378 is capable of asexual reproduction at will, producing instances of SCP-378-A from its anus. Instances of SCP-378-A resemble adult Scolopendra gigantea. Dissection suggests this resemblance is superficial, as SCP-378-A lack expected organ systems beyond a primitive neural network. Instances of SCP-378-A are controlled remotely by SCP-378. SCP-378-A are obligate endoparasites, infecting advanced primates such as humans, Homo ignotus, footnote 4, data expunged, and Gigantopithecus sapiens, footnote 5, common Sasquatch. Upon infection, SCP-378-A integrates itself with its host's nervous system through poorly understood means, inducing brain death and extending SCP-378's remote control to the host itself. Vital functions and sensory input remain unaffected. Upon infecting a suitable host, SCP-378 will attempt to reintegrate its hosts into their respective species' social sphere. Once integrated, SCP-378 directs its hosts to indefinitely engage in the behaviors typical for its species, such as communal labor and social recreation. Human hosts prefer environments with a high population density and a robust entertainment scene. The upper limit of active hosts SCP-378 can maintain at any one time is unknown. Upon initial interrogation, SCP-378 confessed to the existence of 26 human hosts, as well as 2 instances of Alouatta pigra, footnote 6, Guatemalan black howler, and 3 instances of SCP-1000, footnote 7. Research into SCP-378's apparent immunity to SCP-1000's anomalous effects is ongoing, of which it noted had been acquired during a period of heavy intoxication. Addendum 178-294-B, a psychological evaluation of SCP-378. Conducted by Dr. Simon Glass. Tentatively designated Scolopendra animalia, SCP-378 is unique among arthropods, possessing either human levels of sapience or the ability to emulate its host's intellectual faculties. In any case, SCP-378 is self-aware and remarkably intelligent. SCP-378's relationship to its hosts is complicated. While SCP-378 maintains a consistent sense of identity across multiple hosts, each is treated as a persona for SCP-378 to roleplay. Hosts rarely interact with SCP-378 or fellow hosts, suggesting SCP-378 primarily utilizes its anomalous abilities for entertainment. This is further suggested by SCP-378's readiness to abandon such personas under duress. Aside from integration into human social spheres, host behavior is largely unique to each instance. Extroversion is relatively common. Hosts rarely isolate themselves except to sleep or excrete. SCP-378 appears to take equal enthusiasm in stressful versus pleasant situations. Of note, SCP-378 is particularly attached to the identity of Lisa Martin. In contrast to other hosts, Lisa Martin's weekly routine is relatively static. From 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on all days except Saturday, Ms. Martin will show up to work at the nearest pizzeria from the former location of DiGiantonio's Pies, regardless of employment status or scheduled hours. From 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. on all days except Saturday, Ms. Martin will engage in the maintenance of one of 17 rooftop gardens across the city of New York. Of these, 13 are maintained by a cooperative, 12 of which Ms. Martin is not a part of. From 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Saturdays, Ms. Martin alternates between socializing with a collection of friends, coworkers, and lovers, and playing piano for various high-end bars. From 11 p.m. to 12 a.m., Ms. Martin will shower and prepare for bed. And Ms. Martin will sleep from 12 a.m. to 7 a.m., when she will wake up and prepare for the next cycle. In the event of Ms. Martin's death, SCP-378 will direct another host to assume her identity. Attempts to interrupt Ms. Martin's routine have been unilaterally met with unusual levels of hostility from SCP-378 and its hosts. From D. Hayden at SIPNet, Assistant Director Daniela Hayden, Classification Level RESA 4, Employee Number 134. 2. DIR19_K Feinstein at SIPNet, Director Kelsey Feinstein, Classification Level XK4, Employee Number 87. Identifying current hosts. Date, April 27, 1963. Director Feinstein, Mr. Song and Dr. Glass's work have revealed quite a bit about SCP-378. Most importantly, I do not believe it understands the significance of social dynamics, especially in regards to hierarchy and social capital. Several of SCP-378's identities held surprising positions of power. Indeed, two of them, David Lockheed and Alfonso Leaz, are beyond reach of the Foundation's current capacity to contain. Despite this, SCP-378 has shown a willingness to sacrifice such hosts in order to defend, replace, or otherwise maintain Lisa Martin. Odd, yes, but useful enough. It'd be a shame if something were to happen to Ms. Martin and her friends, would it not? SCP-378 is sapient, but it by no means understands the significance of its actions. With a little bit of persuasion, David Lockheed might yet ascend from petty paper pusher for the ASCI, right where the Foundation most needs a puppet. And if I'm not mistaken, spicy crust pizza could always do with a second franchise. Proposal, employing SCP-378's anomalous abilities to defend Foundation operations in the United States. Council vote summary, yeah, 05-1, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 13. Nay, 05-2, 5, 9, abstain, 05-11. Status, approved. Proposal accepted. The Kraken Protocol has been initiated. From S-Song 1 at SIPNet, Senior Researcher Sang-Hun Song, Classification Level Gamma U3, Employee Number 148. 2. DIR19_K Feinstein at SIPNet, Director Kelsey Feinstein, Classification Level XK4, Employee Number 87. Delays in the Gamma U2677 project. Date, July 21, 1965. So, good news and bad news, Director. Good news, as I'm assuming you already heard, with the plans for construction of Site 56, all thanks to a certain Mr. Lockheed, the Kraken Protocol's getting a much-needed expansion. With its relative proximity to both the Lily-of-the-Valley Nexus and the Pacific Northwest, it's a perfect opportunity to expand the scope of SCP-1000's containment while ensuring the ASCI doesn't suck LOTV dry before we get to it. For all its oddities, SCP-378 appears to be delighted at the prospect of a change in scenery. I can't imagine a tropical centipede grub likes having a sphere of influence limited to New England of all places, but that's besides the point. It was compliant enough on the way there. Which leads me to the bad news. Rupert Tremont's a fun little guy. Agent of the FBI's unofficial Unusual Incidents Unit and all too stupid to trust Agent Ryans with his drink while he went to the restroom. After that, it's a matter of transport back to Provisional Area 56 in Black Rock and a centipede down the gullet. Problem comes up when 378 tells us it can't establish a connection. Now, Tremont's still alive, so that's not normal. We run a number of tests, try to figure out what went wrong. And that's when we see a different centipede in his head, where our centipede usually goes. More to come, but I have a bad feeling about this.
Item Number SCP-185. Object Class Safe, Euclid Class considered after Incident 185-1. See Document 185-1 for details. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-185 is to be kept in a soundproof room with noise-filtering microphones for monitoring purposes. Standard guard procedures are to be used for this object. Ear protection must be worn by all occupants in the chamber, excluding test subjects. Description: SCP-185 appears to be a Russian R-105M radio used during the Cold War, except that it has a crudely added keypad and LCD screen. The object can receive most radio transmissions, including encrypted signals. Attempts to determine how it can break even the strongest of encryptions have so far been fruitless. SCP-185 has a very long range, surpassing even modern radio equipment. It functions as a normal radio until input is added via the keypad. It seems that if a year is entered into the keypad, the radio will receive transmissions from the specified era, depending on if messages were being broadcast on the set frequency. This function was discovered when, upon entering the random number of 1939, Neville Chamberlain was heard declaring war on Germany. The possibility of experimenting with dates and times has been noted and is being researched. The possibility of entering future dates is being discussed. It has yet to be decided whether the benefits outweigh the risk of causing a time paradox. On the inside, the radio appears to be unaltered, and the keypad is contained in a box affixed to the side of the radio. Researchers cannot access the keypad due to the box being made from a metal that is yet to be identified. It cannot be cut and there are no determinable ways to disassemble it. Addendum. Document 185-1. Incident 1. During a test, the year was set to -13.73 billion, during the time the universe was suspected to have been created. Sound volumes emitted by the object could not be measured with standard equipment. Survivors further from the incident reported rumbling sounds similar to recorded radio emissions from the sun. All those within 200 meters of the epicenter died of asphyxiation. Sound waves had ruptured capillaries in the lungs. Autopsy reports indicate that the victims essentially drowned in their own blood. The device failed to operate for some time after that incident, and it was found that the device's internal battery pack had failed, replacing its restored functionality. It was noted that the LCD screen was still lit, suggesting that the device has no special power aside from the anomalous box. The sound waves have also rendered SCP inoperable, leading to the reclassification of said SCP as neutralized. The radio seems to have received no damage. Structural damages have been reported on-site and a section had to be shut down for repairs. Testing has been postponed until further notice. Dr.
Any personnel caught using the object to listen to music on duty will be disciplined.
Object request. Mobile Task Force Delta 5 is requesting to use SCP-185 to aid their mission of tracking down objects before our rivals. Task Force believes Iranians have important information and wish to intercept their transmissions. Request accepted.